Hello, everyone, and welcome to finally another episode of Galactic Nerd Outpost. I know it's been a while, had a lot of stuff to work on, and just life in general that kind of pushed this thing back. But I'm planning to get the mostly every week stream thing out of the way, and I kind of been thinking of ideas to get more videos out each month by working on them early before uploading time. I think that would add more variety to the channel, which would also help me with the algorithm with more uploads. But here, my good friend Trev Tom will be once again joining me alongside other people that are going to show up later, at least they said they would, to discuss probably my most hyped movie to come out in the Marvel Cinematic Universe in years, superhero stuff in years too, in terms of American, Spider-Man No Way Home. That being said, before we get on, in case you don't remember the format of these style of reviews / discussions, Trev, Tom, I'd say we start off giving our thoughts on the film in a non-spoiler fashion first, and then after we give our final thoughts and ratings, we go into the spoiler discussion.
Oh yeah, I was just going to follow your lead. Howdy, everybody, by the way.
Anyway, before we get onto the movie, I think I'll let Trev Tom do the summarization of the plot, since he's better at plot summary than I am.
Okay, you're going to throw that on me?
Yes. It's your problem now, son.
Yeah, so No Way Home is the third in the MCU Spider-Man series starring Tom Holland. It follows up on the end of Far From Home, which I actually saw in full for the first time before I saw the movie. It follows up on Far From Home by, picking up where that one left off, where Mysterio, played by Jake Gyllenhaal, had revealed Peter Parker's identity to the world. And at first, well, not at first, actually, based on interviews that Tom gave here recently during promotion, what Marvel wanted to do with this movie was sell it as a kind of civil war between Doctor Strange and Spider-Man, because they really wanted to keep, unfortunately, the worst kept secret in Hollywood, as they've been saying, under wraps. But unfortunately, that didn't work out. And said secret is the 5 main villains from the original 5 Spider-Man films with Tobey Maguire and Andrew Garfield are featured in this due to a multiverse angle. The reason for that being that Peter goes to Doctor Strange and asks him to cast a spell that will make everybody forget that he's, Spider-Man. Unfortunately, he talks during the process and it messes up the spell to where instead of, everybody forgetting that he's Spider-Man, other individuals from across the multiverse who know that Peter Parker and Spider-Man are one and the same end up coming into the MCU reality. And at first, it seems like it's these original 5 villains who are Norman Osborn, Green Goblin, played by Willem Dafoe, Otto Octavius, Doc Ock, played by Alfred Molina, Flint Marko's Sandman, played by Thomas Hayden Church, Dr. Kirk Connors, the Lizard, played by Rhys Ifans, and then finally Jamie Foxx as Max Dillon Electro. These guys come over, they wreck some shit. Tom's Peter Parker is convinced by Aunt May, played by Marissa Tomei, to instead of send the villains back to their fate of dying in their original films, or their original universes in this case, she suggests that Peter actually tries to help them and cure their various problems, because really, when it comes down to it, they're not really evil people necessarily, they're just people with problems. And so this, unfortunately, despite good intentions, doesn't go very well, mainly due to the fact that Norman Osborn is not in control. His Green Goblin persona is, and he basically messes this whole thing up. He convinces a few of the villains to, stick to their guns and basically be gods, And in the process, oh wait, should we do spoilers? Anyway, if y'all are listening to this, it's probably you've probably seen the movie. Um, but anyway, in the process of this whole thing, Aunt May is killed, and Tom Holland's Peter is pretty much at his lowest that he's ever been. Um, and as this occurs, um, we find out that the other two Spider-Man have shown up as well, in addition to the villains. Of course, those other two Spider-Men being played by Tobey Maguire and Andrew Garfield. And they end up, basically mentoring him and telling him as Tobey Maguire's Peter would say, get back on the horse, but not as callous as that. Um,
Yo,
Hi, how you doing?
what's up?
Joey was here a minute ago. I don't know what happened to him, but
Um,
I was going into the plot for the movie.
yeah, I was actually on the stream for like a minute. And you were like, "Well, can we do spoilers?" I'm like, "Yeah, everyone's basically already seen it."
Oh yeah, pretty much. But I wanted to make sure I had the go ahead from him, but he's disappeared for some reason, so I guess I'll just keep going.
Mhm.
But no, I was basically saying that Toby and Andrew's Peter Parker Spider-Mans show up, and this leads into a epic final battle. And that's me just kind of hitting the main big points. There's other further details to go into, but so Andrew, what did you think?
I mean, like everyone else, I really, really liked it. I didn't think it was the most perfect movie anyone else that we had ever seen. Some people were saying that, but I give it a 0.75 on a scale of 1 to 10. The funny thing is that I honestly thought it was going to bomb because the first act goes really slow, and what it does is it sets up like a false expectation just to subvert you later and then get super crunk with it later. So that would be good. That was a pretty good storytelling right there. But yeah, it was awesome. But yeah, you definitely have to get it past that first act.
Yeah, I would actually say that the first act is probably the weakest part of the movie, but that's also because it's the most direct sequel element to the previous two movies.
Yeah.
And then after that, it really just becomes like the culmination of the entire live action Spider-Man franchise.
Yeah, I agree. But I think they did it intentionally, to be honest. Like they intentionally like made it kind of slow to set everything up good and kind of tie up the loose ends and just for us to be thinking that, oh, maybe this isn't going to be that good, just for us to get bashed over the head with everything that start to happen.
Well, yeah, it's funny. I guess I can see what you're talking about with it being a little bit slow, but I actually thought that part of the movie actually went the fastest. And then once all the multiverse elements started showing up, it actually kind of took time to breathe. I don't know.
Right.
Maybe that's just my experience with it.
Yeah, no, once Doc Ock came in the picture, then we take off, and then we're all good from there. Like a lot of people were saying that it was like the most perfect movie they've ever seen. I would say that the third act is probably perfect. It really is. Like stand up job on the third act, the final scenes. They really did. All the hype that was behind the movie was well deserved there.
Oh yeah. And how would this rank for you when it comes to the Tom Holland movies?
Oh, it's for sure the best. Like one of the things that I have pointed out in my review is that there was nothing better than seeing Tom Holland grow up. Like see him, he was Spider Boy before, and this one he becomes Spider Man. To see him take responsibility and make decisions that aren't selfish like that, and to see him go through those harsh scenes with like on man stuff and the character development, that was the best part. So this is by far his strongest one.
Well, and he's also the only Spider-Man of the live action crew to have a 3-film origin. It took a while, but we finally got there.
Yeah, and the best part is that like the other Spider-Man movies, including Tom Holland's, the previous two, and with Tobey Maguire and Andrew Garfield, those are basically origin stories for the new Spider-Man, because now we have a whole new Spider-Man that is completely new to all the rest of the world. I mean, who knows how they erased all of Twitter and, stuff like that talking about Spider-Man. But we get a whole new, fresh, clean slate for Spider-Man, Tom Holland. And that's freaking epic. Mm-hmm. Now we have the more grown version who's going to be doing things and gets a whole new chance to do everything over again. So all those movies are basically one big origin story. I love how they did that. I was completely not expecting that. Completely subverted me.
Oh yeah, and I agree. And those movies, the fact that they're actually technically canon now, is even better. And with the way that this film leaves off, it leaves you wanting to know how is he going to put himself back out there, basically reestablish himself, and basically reintroduce himself to the world, not necessarily the public as Spider-Man, because they still remember that he's Spider-Man, or know who Spider-Man is, I should say. But Peter Parker is basically going to have to start from square one and make new connections.
Yeah, that's what I had meant. Like, of course, there were a bunch of people tweeting it was Peter Parker. Of course, they still know Spider-Man exists, but not who he is. Yeah, that's what I meant.
Yeah, and I would sum that up to the fact that it's kind of a plot device, but, with magic, you can pretty much do anything. So once you conduct that spell, pretty much any record of whatever you're trying to wipe out, it just disappears. Social media, like hard files in a file cabinet somewhere, stuff like that.
Yeah, I don't know. I honestly think in the next movie they need to go.
Shit, I'm back.
Finally.
I don't know what happened. It just lagged me the fuck out, and I had trouble getting back in. I was legit getting pissed. I was gonna do a non-spoiler section first, but I've already started. So
no one cares about the non-spoiler section.
Yeah, we're gonna do spoilers here.
Yeah, everyone who has.
Well, yeah, it's like Andrew was saying. Everybody's seen this who's wanted to see it.
Okay, now I'm gonna send the link to Sebastian here on Instagram. So I'll be giving my thoughts on this soon. But it's like I was getting fucking angry. It's like that. This is just gonna be a review of Sosa and Trevor Thomson, and I'm gonna be involved in something on my own channel.
I was wondering, but. Yeah. Anyone who has not seen the movie yet and was interested in a non-spoiler review has already heard it on YouTube. Like, been avoiding the internet the whole time. So, like, people are, yeah.
That is true. Spoilers are pretty much impossible to avoid at this point. Maybe for, like, the first week, but now everyone had to have found it one way or another.
Exactly. And also, it's made $1 billion.37 as of yesterday.
Yeah,
so that's awesome. I don't think it'll have enough to reach 2 billion, but it'll probably get close. It'll probably get up to 1.6 billion by the time we're all said and done.
Yeah, probably.
Which is amazing because now they can't say.
And this is all during a pandemic too.
Exactly. They can't use that as an excuse anymore.
Yeah.
Exactly. It just proves that when people want to go see something, if it's something they're interested in, they'll go see it.
Mm-hmm. So all those excuses for crappy movies, like The Matrix, like bombing, like, oh my God, they can't say anything anymore.
Well, I watched The Matrix recently. I plan to do a review of that too, but it wasn't good. I'm going to say that right now. It was not good. People don't like the other sequels, but I personally didn't mind them. I actually liked it, Reloaded, and Resurrection was okay. I mean, no, Resurrection was garbage. The third one was okay, but Resurrection sucked.
Yes, I will come and do that.
Well, you have to bear in mind.
Sorry, go ahead.
Sorry, guys. There's a lag. I didn't mean to cut you off. You have to bear in mind that Warner Brothers basically had to convince Lana Wachowski to come back. And even though I haven't seen it yet, pretty much all that I've heard seems like it feels like a movie that her heart wasn't really into it. So,
Yeah. Yeah, it was obviously just there for money, which, don't get me wrong, movies always are about money, but when it comes to that, some things are more apparent than others when they are about money.
Right. And the only reason she did it too was about politics. And that's another reason why I bombed. Spider-Man didn't have any politics, which is one of the reasons I believe it succeeded. That needed to take a lesson from this.
Yep, which I'm fine with political stuff. Don't get me wrong, but a lot of the way Hollywood does it, it's often shoehorned in and doesn't really have anything of value to say.
That sounded an awful lot like you were going to continue that sentence, but then you just kind of dropped off.
Sorry, but it didn't really have a lot of stuff when it comes to Hollywood. They often don't have value to say when it comes to the political stuff. It just feels shoehorned and there to appeal to degenerates on Twitter. That's often the case with Hollywood. When it comes to what I think does politics right, I often think of something like the Godzilla franchise. Like the first movie in the series has a message about war and how the atomic bomb pretty much had an impact on Japanese citizens and the people that were in the middle of it. Like Serizawa represented that one dude who actually built the bomb. I forgot his name, but he was the guy who said, "I become death, the destroyer of worlds." Serizawa represented him. And the oxygen destroyer, along with Godzilla himself, represented the bomb. It was a very dark story, and it told its message in a very horrifying manner that made it so impactful.
For real.
Joey, you're thinking of sorry, Andrew. You're thinking of Oppenheimer.
Yeah, Robert Oppenheimer. That's what Serizawa is kind of based on. But when it comes to Hollywood, I often don't think they handle that stuff well. But No Way Home, I wouldn't say No Way Home is a turn your brain off kind of movie, because it isn't. But it didn't really need to shoehorn anything down your throat. Though, if I would criticize anything about No Way Home, though, I'd have to say there are some aspects in writing that could have been fleshed out more. Like, the question that came is, when it came to the overall spell, there were some, not everyone, it was supposed to attract everyone who knew who Peter Parker was in another realm, but...
You were talking about this before you jumped on.
Yeah, you didn't get Gwen Stacy, you didn't get the other Mary Janes, you didn't get some villains. Like, if any Venom should have been brought into that universe, it technically should have been Spider-Man 3, since he knows who Peter Parker is in Spider-Man 3. The Venom in the solo Venom movies does not. And when it comes to, I know the director kind of gave an explanation for when the movie came out. But my issue is, he said that Venom knows stuff from other universes. But the thing is, that's not present in any of the movies. There's no explanation for any of that. It's just he's suddenly in the universe, and the person who made Venom wanted to come up with an explanation so fans would stop questioning it. Usually, Venom knows who Peter Parker is due to being compatible with him beforehand. So when it came to Venom in the movie, there was no Peter Parker in his realm, and it just came off as confusing. That is something about it that I didn't. Huh?
So you're not wrong, Joey. But if you're really listening to the "Let There Be Carnage" post-credit scene, Venom and Eddie are talking, and Venom is like, "Do you want a sample of the hive knowledge that we symbiotes have across universes?" And he taps into that, and right when he does, he becomes susceptible to Doctor Strange's spell. So that's why he comes over, because Venom has a connection to alternate universe versions of Venom, probably even the Topher Grace version. So that's the explanation. It's real. You have to really be paying attention, but that's what they came up with.
Okay, that actually does make sense. I did not think about that when I first watched either movie in the theater, but that is true. But there is still other questions about it that are raised. For example, did not with Venom itself, but why wasn't Mary Jane or Gwen Stacy or some of the other villains like the new Goblin and stuff imported to that universe? Because if I remember correctly, Strange said it had everyone who knew who Parker was.
Well, that they were
Well,
leaking.
there's a real simple and practical explanation. Those actors couldn't come back either because they weren't interested or because of COVID protocols.
Oh, I know. There's a reason behind it, but it does
Oh
leave
yeah.
a bit of holes in terms of writing there. But other than that, when it comes to the story here, I thought it was really good. Overall, when it comes to doing stuff from multiple time zones and different multiverses, that's difficult. But when it comes to how No Way Home handled it, I think it's handled in an overall very well done pace that actually gives its characters time to develop and breathe. And I like that when it brought in some of the other characters like Doc Ock, they were actually surprised. He was actually surprised to find out that Osborn was still alive, considering in his realm, the Green Goblin was dead. And I liked it having that interaction there, only for him to find out later by the Sandman that he was too killed by Spider-Man.
Yeah, in the movie, it does kind of like one of those very half-hearted like explanations about why the other people didn't come through. It just says basically only some people have been leaking through, aka the most important people that we need for the exposition of the story.
Yeah,
But
that's
not everyone has been able to leak through. But when the multiverse was tearing, they were starting to come through. But Doctor Strange was trying to keep it together and stuff like that. So theoretically, Mary Jane and everyone could have came in then. I guess that's the way they're trying to write it off. But I agree with you. It could have been better explained. Also, I agree with you on the Venom symbiote part that you talked about. It might have made sense more for the story to have the original Venom in Spider-Man 3 come in.
yeah.
But if they had done that, people would have rioted, especially if they had not had the Venom that we now have currently in canon. Like,
Yes.
they would have just lost their minds. And
Yeah, even though I have my problems with how it was handled on an objective scale, I will say I do like what the direction that they're probably going with in terms of using this Venom, because they brought an explanation to add this Venom into the MCU in some way, shape, or form, but they handled it in a manner that could build up to him actually becoming one with Peter Parker later in the Marvel Cinematic Universe. And I liked that. I thought that was very neat, and they better not fuck it up, because that is some really good concepts there.
oh no, they did that part swimmingly.
Actually, on that note, Joey, if they actually do connect him back to Holland's Peter Parker, they'll have to do some kind of thing where he's able to travel the multiverse again. But my theory on that is that if that piece of symbiote makes it back to the main body of Venom after it's been on Holland's Peter Parker for a little bit, that's probably how Venom's going to get like the spider symbol and stuff like that.
True. And I guess another theory that could come to mind is maybe that symbiote that's in Venom, keep in mind, this could just be my memory since it's been a few weeks since I watched the movie, but I have my notes on a lot of the aspects. But I wonder if maybe their explanation in terms of the symbiote thing was since he knows stuff from other timelines, maybe he was actually a part of that symbiote that actually was with Peter and the Maguire trilogy.
Yeah, that's what I was mentioning earlier.
Yeah, that could be the case here, which actually, if they do that, I think that's going to be interesting.
I don't think they will, though.
Oh, they probably won't, but it would be interesting. Another thing I liked about the story is you're given context to... I think a lot of people did not like Electro or certain other characters' designs in the movies, but they didn't just change their look at random just to appeal to the people. at first, it is acknowledged that they looked like what they did in their movies before, but the writing gives context to the change. It's not sudden that they suddenly look more comic accurate. They now it takes I can't remember exactly what happened, but at first Electro is not in that outfit, and he has to get it later. And when it comes to the Green Goblin, as much as I love, and I mean this is my favorite design of the Green Goblin, is that more Super Sentai, Kamen Rider, Tokusatsu look in the Sam Raimi trilogy. They also found a way to make him look more comic accurate too by having him smash the mask when it was driving him crazy.
Yeah, so for Goblin, what it was basically just a deconstruction into something that looks a bit more like the comic books. I agree with you, Joey. I like the tokusatsu look that he had in the original Spider-Man, but this new look was also pretty good. It kind of gets the general gist of, what he looks like in the comic books. For Electro, how they explained it was that he absorbed the energy from the MCU dimension, and it was a different, caliber. That's why it went from blue to yellow. And I mean, that's kind of a thin explanation in itself, but it's what they went with. That's why he changed appearance. That's why, it's yellow electricity instead of blue. And he even mentions in the movie that it's supposedly stronger.
Yeah.
Even though he ends up using the arc reactor, which, is what really boosts his power. But
yeah.
anyway, those were the two. Actually, those were the only two that were changed because Doc Ock was fine. Sandman was himself, mostly CGI because I don't think Thomas Hayden Church was actually on set for the movie. He did provide the voice
acting.
Yeah, and then the Lizard was just him his CGI self. There was some minor alterations. His face looked a little different. But yeah, those two definitely they weren't actually there, it seemed like, but they did do the voice work.
Yeah, and I liked that. It added some context to why certain things are the way they are, which a lot of the time when it comes to a sudden change in a sequel or whatever, it's just that, a sudden change to appeal to the fans. But here they actually gave a reason for it. Which, again, I actually prefer the more tokusatsu-y look in the original Spider-Man movie. But at the same time, at least they gave a valid reason for the change. Something that added context in the story, which I did appreciate.
Yeah, half the time they don't even give you a reason, and it just drives me nuts. The reasons might not pan out exactly, or might not be the most thoroughly explained. At least they tried.
Yeah, which I like that, because you usually do not get that term of that deep dive into why something changed. It's usually just there. They retcon the last look, which kind of bothers me. But here, so it was a nice breath of fresh air on why they did that here.
Well, I'd be willing to bet that they were probably not going to, but they made this a 2.5-hour movie to make sure that they cut all the loose ends off. They tied all their bows and everything, because they were not going to mess this movie up. This was their cash grab. This was their we're coming back. And if they had messed any of that up,
people would be pissed. Dude. If I was to sum up this story, I'm not saying this as an insult. I'm saying this in a good way, actually. The concept sounds like something you'd get out of only a fan fiction. And don't get me wrong, normally fan fictions are stupid, but overall, you usually will not get something like this in Hollywood because either due to lack of creativity or deeming it too risky. So I like that, because you're getting different Spider-Mans and different characters from multiple universes, obviously there as a way of fan service, which was cool, because usually, like I said, in Hollywood, you're not going to see something like this done. Like, if you would have asked me years ago when this MCU thing started, would these characters all appear in the same movie, I would have said you were crazy.
For real.
But they actually did it, and I like that. Though I knew this was gonna happen, but still was disappointed. We got no Japanese Spider-Man in the movie. We didn't get him. It's like, come on, give us back Spider-Man.
To be honest, and not to sound corny, It was kind of a surreal and magical experience seeing all these characters together because, like y'all said, I would have never imagined that would have happened because it seemed like it felt like we were just going to get Spider-Man rebooted over and over, but they connected all of it to some degree.
And I like how all the characters are respected. Like, sure, they do the usual joking around with them, but none of it comes off like they're insulting the characters. The jokes are handled in a funny manner at the right time, and they don't ever feel disrespectful to the characters. It doesn't feel like, haha, you suck, you're part of lesser movies than our MCU stuff. They were actually felt like the people who made it actually liked those movies, and including the Garfield stuff.
Agreed. Like, everybody across the internet, and including me, was shocked on how good Andrew Garfield was, which is, it's a sad thing to see that it apparently, because a lot of people blamed him for not being a good Spider-Man. It wasn't him that wasn't a good Spider-Man. It was the writing that he was obviously given. He couldn't turn the crap movie into something good. And to see him actually have good writing to be able to work with, he really shined through. That was awesome to see.
Yeah, and he did really great here. Like, one of the scenes that I was, even before the movie came out, that scene when MJ was falling, I was wanting to see him actually redeem himself and catch her. And it was a very emotional moment when he did, because even when he caught her, he started crying and all that stuff because he was able to do to her what he couldn't do for his Gwen Stacy. And it was a beautiful scene.
Absolutely. What happened to what's his name, Pena? He was on here for a second and then dropped off.
He said in the chat, sorry, I can't be there today, gentlemen. I'm about to eat. Okay.
Eat? Okay.
Other things that I like in this story, for speaking of the emotion, I think there is quite a bit of it in this film, more so than the vast majority of MCU movies, actually. Like, you still have the comedy stuff that comes in, and the comedy's funny, but something about the way the overall story is structured. You get more moments of emotional build, considering that Peter Parker's friends, due to having a connection to him, are getting fucked over on college and stuff. Peter wants to help them, but him wanting to help them overall kinda ends up fucking up that spell because he starts being reckless about it. And though it does cause a bunch of bad stuff to happen, like the death of his Aunt May and them eventually having to forget who he is at the end, he does learn from his mistake, and his dynamic with Doctor Strange, though he yelled at him often for pretty much fucking up the spell, at the same time you got the feeling that Strange did care about him, and it was touching, I think.
I agree with that. Like, especially at the end, they did a really good job with that because he seemed really kind of separated from him, even though he said they were close, but he didn't seem to like really care about him that much in the end. But at the end, he gained respect for him. I like that. That they did a good job kind of tying it all up at the end.
Yeah, I thought it was very beautiful, and his relationship with everybody was very well done, shown that he was good-hearted, and his Aunt May, despite being killed by the Green Goblin, she still thought that Peter was doing the right thing by helping them.
All right.
I did not expect the death of Aunt May, but that made it hit all the more hard, because since we did have an Uncle Ben for Tom Holland, we got her as a replacement, and it actually made for some very surprising, shocking, and emotional ways to grow his character. And he does get reckless by her death too, as he does try to kill the Goblin, but of course, Maguire's Spider-Man stops him, which I thought that was really nice, especially since Maguire's, in his universe, is the reason that the Goblin was killed.
All right, you brought it up, so I'm going to go there. I have to rant just a little bit. All right, but I have to give context to this rant. All right?
Okay.
We talked about politics before.
Yeah.
The RNA thing is political, but I will say that it's not what you would call like get woke, go broke. It's not that. The scene itself and the entire way that it was done with throughout the rest of the movie is great. I am not saying it's not. Aunt May's death scene is spectacular. The way it influences Tom Holland Spider-Man, spectacular. The way it plays into the rest of the movie, all spectacular. I still don't like it though, that female replacing agenda, which is what it was. It was still greatly done. Still greatly done. It was just like a No Time to Die. No Time to Die. We all knew what they were doing, killing off James Bond. It was still done greatly. That being said, though, I know what they're doing, and I don't care I don't care how many reboots you do. I don't care how many multiverses there are. It is just like in the comics. Whenever Spider-Man talks to TOAA, and he talks about that, and we had to have faith in how things are supposed to go. And just like they're in the What If series, Doctor Strange, his wife dying, is a universal constant, is a multiversal constant that can never change, or else you won't have it. That is supposed to be how it is in all Spider-Man movies. Not Aunt May, it's Uncle Ben that does, with great power comes great responsibility. And it is him who dies, not anyone else. Even if you can greatly do Aunt May, I don't care. You do not change that. That is my biggest and pretty much my only real problem with the movie. You don't change that. You don't do it. No way. No ifs, ands, or buts. That's inexcusable.
In all fairness, I do see what you mean here, but in all fairness, I think in the previous MCU Spider-Man movie, I think the reason when it came to Uncle Ben not being added in those is we already had a bunch of Spider-Man stories that already killed him off. So they wanted to take, I think it's clear that they wanted to take the stories and the MCU in a different direction, since the Garfield stuff was already similar to the Raimi films and basic plot summary, I guess. So I get what they did there, and since Uncle Ben wasn't a thing in this movie, all that's there was Aunt May to kill off and to do that with. And if they would have added Uncle Ben in this movie, it would have kind of felt like he was just added in for the sole purpose of that. And I think using May, since Uncle Ben wasn't in the previous movies, I think that made it much more powerful, since we had his relationship with his aunt throughout the other movies to build up to this. You got a connection between her and Peter, so it made it hurt more. Now, if Uncle Ben was in the other movies, that would be a different story, but he wasn't, and I think the reason he wasn't in those was for them wanting to do something different with the MCU Spider-Man. I think that was what they were going with. I could be wrong, but that's my...
I completely agree with pretty much everything you just said right there. Everything you just said, I agree with. And two things can be true at the same time. In our political world, they oftentimes think that two things can't be true at once. No, both sides can be right at once. You're right in everything you just said and what their reasoning behind it was, trying to do something different, everything you just said. But also for the MCU, for that agenda. It's also for that, it just checks off all the boxes that makes everyone happy in the first place. Because you can get mad about it because it was really well done. And I will say it again, it was really well done. And they still honored Tobey Maguire. And they canonized his whole movie series, and they honored it, made him look really good. So the Uncle Ben part is still there as part of the original origin story. So go off in a different way is acceptable, but we still know what they're doing.
Yeah, that is true. That is true, especially when it comes to the MCU. I do understand that perspective there, because the MCU does have a history of this kind of thing. Like when you have a superhero of different race, they gotta mark it off that. When you have a superhero of a different gender, it's like, oh, let's mark it off that, instead of being it's a fucking superhero, who cares what the race or gender is. So I do see what you mean there. I'm not sure, but it is a possibility.
Yeah, well, I wouldn't even call it a possibility, but I can't factually say you're wrong either. So we'll just leave it up to the current trends of the way that Hollywood is going. That's what I believe was happening.
Oh, I see what you mean there completely. I really do. I know what Hollywood's like, so I get that. I completely get that. Trust me.
Like, and a lot of people get mad at me because I like go off on those things. I don't mind you doing those things. Just you have to do it right. And even though I know what they're doing, if you do it right, I ain't tripping that bad. Like, for example, not all of the movie, but for example, the Eternals. A lot of people were mad about the race and gender swapping in that one. I told everybody in my movie review, and I told everyone, I said, there are certain scenes in that movie that are definitely kind of like the SJW stupidity, but
Yeah.
the casting actually makes sense. If you are going to have a race of Eternals that's meant to look over the entire race of human beings, it would make sense that they're spread out throughout the entire world. And if they're aliens with all these superpowers, there's no reason to have it all be male or female. So it actually makes sense that you would diversify that cast to be a little bit more, according to the climate of today. And a lot of people got mad at me for that. I was like, no, that's actually really well done. Same thing with Aunt May. It was really well done, even though I know what they're doing. So, like, if you do it the right way, it's acceptable. Is my point. If you do it the right way, then we're all for it.
Exactly. When it comes to political stuff and scripts, I just want it to be well written. I don't care if it's right, left, neutral. Just have it good. And I also don't want it to boil down to extremism. I don't want any stuff that's hating on white people or stuff that's hating on the other way around, black people or something. But if it's a message that's just political and well written, it's like, okay, I'll take it. Just no extremism. That's something I don't want in my scripts. Extremism at all.
Sure. You know what? I will step you up even further than that, though. Extremism can be okay, once again, if it's done right. I will give you really good examples. The way it's done wrong is the latest Netflix movie, Don't Look Up, where they actually bash all sides, but they definitely bash one side more than the other. But they basically try to make, Republicans, people who don't even want to look up at the sky and see what's going on for the whole climate change narrative. And we're not even going to get into all that. That's done wrong. That's the cringy way. I'll tell you a movie that I won't spend too much time on, but that does right-wing extremism really well. And I am such a fan of it because that is exactly how it's done well. It's not just, these random white supremacists, just with Trump hats on. That's stupid, cringy that's bullshit.
Oh, yeah, that is cringy, yes.
Swordfish. Have you seen Swordfish?
I have not. I have not seen Swordfish.
Look up the movie Swordfish. It's with Hugh Jackman, John Travolta, and Halle Berry.
That is true.
It is a great movie, and it shows an actual right-wing extremist without even saying he's a right-wing extremist. It never says that at all in the movie, but it was done back in 2007 before we had all this PC bull, so it makes sense that they actually wrote it well. But he basically is a guy who is so patriotic. He is so against, the terrorists in the Middle East that he basically wants to steal a bunch of money. And basically, anytime that they commit a terror act on the USA, he's going to do 10 more to them. And he has Halle Berry as his wifey, So yeah. John Travolta played. That's a right-wing terror. That's a right-wing extremist right there. That's what a real extremist would do. And
Fair enough.
Well-written way to do it. Just do it right.
Yeah, that's all that matters, is if it's done right.
Right.
That's all I asked for.
So with Anime, I still enjoy all of it. It still works. So I ain't tripping too much on them. I would have taken the movie down a few notches if they hadn't done everything else and hadn't done it well. I was just pointing that out. Just not having Uncle Ben there. Oh my God. Like, I honestly thought that they were gonna have what's the guy who knows Iron Man?
I can't remember his name.
No, he writes the new Star Wars show. I can't remember. Buddy.
Happy Hogan.
Yeah.
What's his name in the show? Buddy?
Happy Hogan.
Happy. Yes, exactly. I couldn't remember it. Happy Buddy. I honestly thought they were going to make him be the Uncle Ben. He was going to get with Aunt May and that he was going to be the Uncle Ben. I thought they were going to kill him off.
I think the closest we got to a male Uncle Ben in the MCU would be Tony Stark, actually, from his relationship with Peter Parker, and then eventually being killed off and having an effect on Peter. I think that's the closest we got to a male Uncle Ben in the MCU was Tony Stark.
Which is acceptable as well. I can take that. That's more than fine.
Yes.
But since I did a little bit of the bashing on the movie on that specific scene, though, right there, I will just say for the third time, they did it really well. Like, oh my God, the tear jerking within that one. Seeing Tom Holland, because at first, I mean, we kind of knew she was going to die once that scene happened, but it didn't look like she was going to be dead. It just looked like she was kind of hurt.
Exactly.
These kind of guys that they were going to kill off Miss Milpy, you know?
Yeah. Yeah, I did not expect that because when I was in the theater and I saw that happen, I was like, oh, they're not going to kill her off. And then
no way.
They did. And it was very hard-hitting. And the fact that you couldn't predict it and yet you thought that she was going to be okay when she got back up made it hit all the harder.
Yeah.
And when it comes to the Goblin, I think William Dafoe and the writers did an excellent job at distinguishing the Goblin and Norman Osborn. Because you had the feeling that Norman was in pain and he wanted to stop being the Goblin, while he also had his Goblin alter ego that was not going to let that happen and take over. And I think but he did a really good job at switching from a scared, overall saddened man trying to get back to himself to being that fun, psychotic villain that we had in the 2000s movie. And it's nice to see William Dafoe still got it. I still think these days he would make an amazing Joker if they casted him. He's got the performance for it, and he can play someone like Norman Osborn. He's an amazing actor.
Bro, yeah, for real. I would love to see him as a Joker.
Yeah, I think he would be perfect. Shit, I liked Joaquin...
Hanging off the spotlight.
Yeah, like shit, I liked Joaquin Phoenix in his solo Joker movie, but I think if we got William Dafoe back, I think we would have someone that would be... I mean, William Dafoe as the Joker. I think we would have someone that would be rivaling Heath Ledger and Mark Hamill.
And they could do that with the multiversal concept. William Dafoe, it turns out to be the Joker instead of the Green Goblin.
Yeah.
In the Andrew Garfield universe, that actually happens because we have the original Green Goblin in there, and then William Dafoe is the Joker in that universe. That could work.
Yes, that could very much work. And when it comes to the relationship with Peter and MJ, I think this one did it the most justice out of all of them. It was always good in the MCU. You always had that build up for him becoming her friend, her going from this sarcastic, fun girl that pretty much avoided others into pretty much becoming more loving towards Peter. And here you have the full thing. It's actually very beautiful. It's actually a very beautiful relationship of them together, and Peter loses everything at the end of the movie. He loses all of them. He doesn't have his friend anymore, and he doesn't have his girlfriend anymore because they don't remember who he is, and that makes it hit extra hard. Trev, you've been quiet for a while.
Looks like we lost him. Oh yeah, the reason why is because there's such a delay. I was waiting for y'all to give me a moment.
Okay.
No, yeah, it's not y'all's fault. It's just there's a delay on my end for whatever reason. I also put a comment in the private chat on my thoughts about why they had to do the Aunt May death instead of an Uncle Ben thing, and it's pretty much what you were saying. But I also added the fact that they kind of had to stick with the canon that they established. So, Andrew's probably not wrong in the fact that there might be an agenda, at least on some people's parts. But I think they really just had to stick with what they had established because they had already deviated from what we knew with Spider-Man so much already that they basically had to get things back on track.
Yep. And
sorry, I fell off there for a second.
When it comes to the...
No, that's all right, man.
And I know I mentioned the comedy earlier, but I gotta say, the jokes here did land. When it comes to the MCU, it's known for having hit and miss humor because often they feel like they just have to write it in for the sake of it being there. But here I think is one of the times it's done very well. Like, for example, the joke where the Shield dude walks in on Peter undressing with MJ in the room. He's like, sorry, and then walks away. I know it's a bit of a cliche, but what matters is presentation, and that, I laughed. It was clever, and it worked. When it comes to Spider-Man, you know, because Spider-Man often has to hurry in his room and quickly change his clothes. So I think for Spider-Man and this joke together, I think they overall merged perfectly.
Yeah, I didn't like all the humor within it. It felt a little bit cheesy in some parts, but still, it was more than satisfactory overall.
Yeah, there is some parts where it's that typical MCU-style humor where it's like, you didn't need to do that. But for the most part, I did find myself at least chuckling at it, and I never cringed, which is good. Like, if it comes to cringy comedy, let's talk about something that actually is not funny. Ghostbusters 2016. The jokes make no sense. They're forced in and are often, sometimes they're just cringy. Like, I forgot what the joke was, but Red Letter Media pointed out a specific joke in the review that had no purpose whatsoever. It made no sense. It was just written in for the sake of it. And it was often there. Another example would be Birds of Prey. Humor being thrown in, often just there for like, haha, man bad, or haha, woman gets discriminated, women strong. It's not funny. Get some proper writing. And that's what I would describe as cringy humor. Nothing here felt cringy. At worst, it was just, at worst, I had no reaction, at worst.
Yeah, it was just kind of like, that was supposed to be funny? Okay, whatever. Moving on.
Yeah, the majority of the humor I did think was good.
Like in my personal opinion, I don't see what's so funny about the name Otto Octavius.
Yeah.
What's so funny about that? I don't find.
Yeah, I agree with you there. It was kind of forced in, but I will say this: at least it didn't disrespect the character. So,
right.
On one hand, it was just thrown in for some forced comedy. On the other, they were not trashing on the character. They were just poking a little fun at the name, lighthearted fun.
Right. Yeah, that wasn't that bad at all. It's just also props to them. Also, I know this is kind of a given, but they spared no expense on the CGI, the de-aging technology, and to respect all the characters like that way too. Like even though they have cash money over at Disney, sometimes their special effects, their CGI screens don't look good at all in some of their movies. Like some of those scenes within Shang-Chi were that way. Not all of them, but some of them. They didn't mess up anything on this one. They did great.
Yes. And when it comes to the tampering of the spell, I think that was well done too, because as another friend of mine pointed out, it wasn't done for selfish reasons either. Peter was doing that for his friends and just so he could help them get into college. It was stupid and it fucked shit up, but it was nice character development and it got under Doctor Strange's skin, but at the same time he understands that Peter is just a kid. And but it's still understandable that he would lash out about it a bit.
I'm going to disagree with you just a little bit. Just a little bit. I don't think that scene. I think that was plot-induced stupidity, though, where the whole movie starts with the problem is really stupid. Doctor Strange, the head of the multiverse of madness, one of the smartest guys around, wouldn't establish all the parameters that Peter Parker wants first. He just starts doing the spell without even going through all the details and talking about everything first. Like that, I understand you have to make a story up.
You're right.
That's just really stupid. Like if it was really as dangerous as Doctor Strange was saying, he wouldn't have even done that. He would have just completed the spell the way he originally intended it to, instead of making it mess up all over the place and all these problems happening. And he could have contained the spell afterwards if he wanted to, just like he did with the spell in the actual movie. But he didn't. Like, we just have to have, Tom Holland, putting in all these other things, and that's why the movie, that's where the conflict arises. That's a little stupid. I'm not going to tear it apart too much because there's definitely been worse, even in movies that I love. But yeah, you could have done better.
Yeah, I agree. Especially since if you think about it, it kind of doesn't make sense that all that changing of the spell would lead to every villain knowing who Peter is coming in. If you think about it, that doesn't make much sense.
Well, the multiverse, you have to remember, the multiverse is something that we know frighteningly little about.
That is true. That is true. But if I was to criticize something of the story, another thing would be is when it comes to the other villains being dragged in, all of them were dragged in either before their deaths or before they were about to get cured in someone like Doc Connor's case. Which, again, that's not a problem. But where I take issue here is by them getting all sent back to their dimensions, does this mean that some certain events in the Raimi trilogy and all that doesn't happen? Like Norman Osborn. Norman Osborn's death had a big effect on Harry Osborn in Spider-Man 2 and Spider-Man 3. So with him being sent back fine, you think it would kind of tamper with certain events that would happen in the later movies of the Raimi trilogy. And I don't really have I don't really have any problem with him being sent back to the universe, as it didn't really have much effect on it. But when it came to Osborn's death, it kind of served an importance to the sequels.
So on that note, Joey, I think what would happen is that once he's sent back cured, that would end up being its own pocket reality. So like in one reality, we have the timeline that's Spider-Man 1, 2, and 3. And then we have the other timeline, which is where Norman goes back and he's cured. But on the point that you made, that begs the question, so does Otto still become Doc Ock? Does Flint still become Sandman if Norman is cured and he doesn't become the Green Goblin? Does Harry doesn't have any reason to have a crusade for revenge?
Yep.
So you raise an interesting question, but I go ahead.
Which Harry also had part in in Spider-Man coming to battle Ock in Spider-Man 2 because he took Mary Jane. But aside from that, yeah, it did raise that question. Which kind of does confuse me. But you do make a good point that maybe that is a separate universe now.
Is this sound messing up on y'all's end?
No.
No? Okay, it seems to be on my end. Sorry, my thing conked out there for another second there. I don't know if y'all said this while I was gone. I was only gone for about 10 seconds, but they're probably going to use your plot hole or lack of explanation as storylines later on. They're going to use them as flashbacks or just completely separate story points to be like, hey, this is what happened now.
Yeah, that is true, because I hope they do, because right now it's a bit of a plot hole. But as Trevor Thomson stated, maybe that is a separate universe now. Like you have the one where all that into this Raimi trilogy happened, and you have the one where they survived. But I hope they dive into that more later, because right now questions are raised about the whole thing.
Yeah, questions are the way you get people to come back for more, though. So. Yeah.
We'll have to see what happens.
Exactly.
Yeah, we'll have to see what happens.
All right, Trev, because I don't want to hog up too much of the camera time. I have a question for you, and then Joey, I want you to answer the question.
Okay.
And there's no right or wrong. I see both sides, but I'll give my opinion after y'all done. Do you think Aunt May was right?
You mean the death of her?
No. Do you think Aunt May was right about trying to help the other people from the other multiverses, help the bad guys, help the villains?
I think, in a way, yes. Mainly because they were not evil. Harry Osborn himself wasn't evil. He had an evil side to him, but being the Goblin, but he wanted to be cured. Doc Ock, after his arms pretty much lost control over him, was also a good guy. So Except Electro. Electro, he knew exactly what he was doing. He had full control of everything. They did not have to cure him. He technically was just a piece of shit.
How about you, Trev?
Yeah, sorry, I have a lag on my end, so I'm waiting for y'all to finish before I get in there. But to answer your question, um, I think it goes back. What Aunt May was saying goes back to the principle from the comic books, where Peter's a very virtuous, a very kind person. He always tries to, find a way to help, somebody, whether it's a villain or, like a regular, person with a problem. Like for instance, in the Maximum Carnage comic book arc, um, he and Venom disagreed over what they should do about Cletus. Venom wanted to kill him, and Peter wanted to find a way to, put him away again. So on that note, I think that's what they were drawing from in terms of Aunt May's philosophy, is that they were going back onto that core personality trait of Peter Parker, is that he's a genuinely good person, and he's going to try and find a way to non-lethally help somebody if he can. Of course, he struggles with that a bit because of what Goblin ends up doing to May. But yeah, I think that's what they were kind of referring to. So, long story short, yeah, I think it was something refreshing, something nice to see that, they're not going to just kill them off. They're going to, cure their problems, because most Spider-Man villains are people with problems. I mean, there's a few genuinely evil ones, like Carnage, like I mentioned. But yeah, they have issues that, if at all possible, that they can probably fix.
All right, that's fair. Me personally, and I understand that this is just opinion, but me personally, I did not like the. I understand why they did what they did. I understand why Aunt May thinks the way she thinks. I think it's a very naive way to look at that, though. When you have the multiversal balance in the rings, and when you have all these dangerous people around, which is something that Tom Holland kind of learned, so good for character development. I get that, but at first, even Tom Holland was on board with the whole idea that, hey, these people got to go back no matter what. And that's true. I agree with Doctor Strange. I did not like personally, the with great power comes great responsibility trope, that very legendary line. I did not like that being used on a purpose, on a mission to save 5, 6 villains, some with good motives, some and who just had bad luck, some who didn't. You're going to use that line instead of saving the multiverse or not messing up the multiverse, and your own aunt ends up dying, your parental figure ends up dying along with tons of other damage on other people because you wanted to have this very sweet and kind and very noble but extremely naive sense of responsibility to try to help them. I'm a parent. I don't know if y'all have kids, but I have 3 girls, and let me just tell y'all, as someone who's more of the old school mentality, like Doctor Strange, and as a parental, I'm like, no, they're going back. I ain't risking nothing for nobody. I ain't risking my universe. I ain't risking anybody on my side of the family for their necks. I'm sorry. No.
That is fair. That is fair, because these people are still villains, so I do get that. Though in terms of, like I said, the actual people that are bad, like Electro, like I said, he wasn't controlled. I do think that saving him wasn't worth it, but I do see why he tried to save the Goblin and such, since they weren't themselves. But I do understand your point of view there.
Yeah,
It's nice to see some character development there, as making mistakes is a part of growing, and it does have an impact on him as a person, and he becomes better about it. And when it comes to the end of what, Trev?
No, I was just going to say, to his point, I think we could probably say this is another criticism. Really, what it was done for is that it was a way to kill off May so that she would fulfill that Uncle Ben role. That's what I feel. That's what I feel it kind of taps into as well, if we're being critical about it. And it also kind of factors into the Peter Parker luck, where even if he has the best intentions or people around him have the best intentions, they end up paying for it, because that's just how the life of Spider-Man is. I mean, if you're close to him, you're in constant danger.
When it comes, I do agree with you there. But they were doing it for the Uncle Ben purpose. I get that, but I think the way it was written in, they wrote it into the script in a way that would grow his character and progress the story, which it did, because it's what made him reckless for a while, like recklessly hateful into wanting to kill the Goblin, until Tobey Maguire's Spider-Man stopped him, and eventually he did what was right and he saved them. And for speaking of such, it led to an actual very wholesome ending before the very sad stuff, which very hard hitting. But when the villains are all meeting up, like with Ock and Tobey Maguire's Spider-Man, like when Ock is telling him how much he's grown, it was wholesome. And when the characters are all interacting with their own villains after they're cured, I think it made for a great way to pretty much redeem them.
Right. If it wasn't for the whole multiversal balance being thrown off, then I would be more on their side. But you can't risk the multiverse for this, very spirited and very kind-hearted attempt to save them. You're going to. What if you mess up? You're going to throw away the multiverse.
That is true. That is true. I'm just saying that I like the overall wholesome aspect of when they all met up at the end. It was actually very wholesome, which is weird considering these are their villains. They usually beat the shit out of each other, but they managed to write it in a way that was actually very heartwarming. But I do see what you mean there, because he was putting a lot on the line, which could have killed a lot of people. But at the same time, He did get fucked over with it, which was his mistake.
A little side point I want to point out, though, is
on that note.
Go ahead, lag.
No, I'm sorry. On that note about what you were saying, Andrew, you could also say that it might even be kind of political, because that's a very modern Gen Z kind of attitude about dealing with people with problems that might have factored into that a little bit. I just thought of that actually.
That could be it. I never thought of that, but
I'm trying to give the movie more benefit of the doubt than that. You are correct though. But like I'm actually going against my politics a little bit of that, because the more right-wing position is that, hey, you don't even sacrifice one, even for 1 million. Like you just don't. But at the same time, you have to be a little bit more conservative, so to speak. Think about the whole multiverse for that person. So like, I'm actually going against my own grain. Like, so I don't think personally, although you could be right, I don't really think it was political. I just think that was kind of just a natural way of doing things. Like, and I don't care what anyone says about this as nothing. I'm saying that Aunt May had very valid points. I wouldn't have done what she did, but she wasn't wrong. But that's a very female way of thinking, to try to save these people. And that's also a very young way of thinking. I can be the hero. I can save the day. I can fix all this, and everyone will be fine. Like, that's a very young way of thinking, and the safe way of thinking would have been more the old school conservative dad, Doctor Strange-ish, kind of thing. So, but that being said, I think it all fits in the story very well. And when both people are right, and both people were right, I guess it's not really political then. If both people are right, hey, cool.
Yep.
Okay, I thought there was more following that. but yeah.
No, I actually would agree with you. I would agree with you, Andrew. No, I would agree with you, Andrew, but I also question whether or not Peter is going to be inclined to keep on doing that after this experience, like in future films? Is he going to follow, May's line of thinking, or is he going to think about all the consequences that came from that? And when it comes to certain villains, whoever they, excuse me, may be, is he going to be okay with, taking them out if he needs to? That's an interesting question for what is probably going to be an even darker trilogy, hopefully, that
Yeah.
follows these movies.
And when it comes to,
I think. Go ahead.
You finished, since I was gonna go on to something completely different in terms of the writing. So.
Oh yeah, I ain't done with this yet. I actually completely agree with you, Trev, that that's going to be a big part of what the stories entail later on. I think he's going to try to be a very middle of the road guy. I think he's going to try to strike that balance. I think that Spider-Man Tom Holland, now that he's done some growing up, is going to be able to find that middle of the road very good. But I think that definitely in the later movies, that's going to be a big part of the plot. Should I kill him? How much force should I use? Should I not? I think that's going to be a big part of it. And I think that he is going to lean more away from Aunt May's type of thinking, because that's part of him growing up, is that he realizes that you can't reason with some people. Some people are just unfixable. I think that's going to be part of his growing up stage. But I think what's going to happen is he's going to become a lot more Punisher-esque, but he's the tether of Aunt May's morality and hopefulness and youthfulness and non-negativity, non-pessimism, non-nihilism is going to be what brings Peter Parker back sometimes to show mercy to his enemies. That probably is going to be part of the movie. He's probably going to get really close to killing somebody, but then Aunt May is going to come back to him in some sort of flashback or some other part of the multiverse or something like that, and then he'll show them mercy. So I think he's going to be less merciful, but he's going to have that tether there to kind of keep him in check, so to speak.
Makes sense.
Yeah, and on that note, think about this. We don't know when they're going to dive into the symbiote, suit stuff. There's some people out there that say they want a black suit trilogy. And on that note, that gives us a very strong opportunity to have like a physical manifestation of like the devil on his shoulder, so to speak. He really has no one right now. He has no one right now. And let's say the symbiote enters his life, and that's the voice that he's inclined to listen to because he's in a very dark place. But over the course of, let's say, this next trilogy, let's say they do a black suit trio of movies. Over the course of those 3 movies, he might, wrestle literally with the symbiote in terms of figuring out what his morality actually is. I would think that'd be very interesting. I don't know if they'll do that, but
No, that's actually a really fabulous idea, bro. And before he gives way to the the Venom symbiote is very hard to beat. So I would be willing to bet that they use this part of the story. I think you're being a great prognosticator. But it would be really good if if Tom Holland is about to lose his morality to the Venom symbiote and he's just going to give into it. Something else bad happens to him and he's just going to give into everything. And then Aunt May is the one that pulls him back at the last moment. That would be great.
Yeah.
And that's what allows Tom Holland to tear the Venom symbiote off of him, just like in Spider-Man 3 with Tobey Maguire.
And another thing I'd like to say about Spider-Man's development here, they could have easily had it where Peter's name would have been cleared by just some simple spell by Strange, but they didn't. He had to prove himself in order to get this stuff done, which is proper character development, because like I said, with a power like Strange, they could have easily just written in some bullshit like, let's just clear his name of all the crap that he done, that one guy Mysterio was actually bullshitting, but nope, it actually takes him to clear his name by his own work, and I liked that. Because like I said, with this universe, they could have done something else that was more cheap or forced in, but they actually took the time to grow his character by by actually accomplishing his motives by saving them in order to get Strange and the people's respect.
Yeah, I get you. A little side note, just two random things I want to point out is that we talked about Electro having no redeeming qualities in the end, even though he's not a really, really bad guy, but he's not one of the redeemable ones. I don't care, though. He was so cool in this movie. His powers were off the chain. Like, that dude was unstoppable.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, he was cool, yes. But what I meant by that is, unlike the others, while, for example, Norman Osborn has another side to him done by that Goblin serum he took in the Maguire film that gives him a separate alter ego, and Ock, he had it where the arms are pretty much manipulating him while he was completely all there. But aside from that, yeah, he was cool. I did not hate him at all. On my personal standpoint,
the thing with Max.
yeah, he was badass.
Sorry, Joey. The thing with Max is that going by the Amazing Spider-Man 2, you know, he was super lonely and like a major outcast. So for him, this electricity power is kind of like a drug for him, and he doesn't want to let go of it. He wants to you know, keep on feeding into it, because I think he even says it in this movie. Yeah, even in this movie, at some point, I think he says that, you know, I'm nobody without it, and you know, you're not going to take this from me, because then I'll be nobody again.
Well, that could be a very good way of putting a very subtle parallel to drug users. Maybe that's what they were trying to do with that. That would be great.
Yeah, that is interesting. In the way it was handled, like, he kind of sees his wrong after he does get his power stripped away. Because I can't remember which Spider-Man was. Wasn't it Holland's he was talking with while Garfield was talking with Kurt Connors?
I don't remember.
During which scene, Joey? Whenever he says you're not going to take this from me?
And one of them was pretty much talking to him.
Oh, no, he was talking to... He was talking to Andrews, and that actually brings up kind of a plot hole. Is why was Max brought into this universe? Because he didn't actually know who Peter Parker was. Because when Andrew Garfield's Spider-Man takes off his mask, he doesn't know who he is. He says that I thought you were going to be black.
Holy shit, you're right. I forgot about that. That was funny, though. It did lead up to a good joke where he said, and I thought you would be black. And I think he said something like, maybe in another universe, as a reference to Miles Morales.
Yeah.
And that was funny.
It was what it was.
It was both heartwarming as it kind of built up his character more, and funny. But you're right. There was a plot hole there. Though... I just remember
well done though. I don't care.
Which hey, listen, it sounds like there's a bunch of plot holes here, but the movie was very enjoyable. The experience was, you know, worth it. So I can overlook all those things.
Oh, I agree. There is definitely more positive to say about it than negative. Though another thing I did like, this is completely random into the script, was everyone who knew Peter was Spider-Man were treated as an accomplice. Because since there was some illegal shit going on here, and I don't know if this was done in any of the comic books, but either way, it was a breath of fresh air to see that here, because I'm pretty sure in a lot of movies, the only one the police would have been questioning would be the one who was Spider-Man. But nope, here they brought in everyone who knew he was Spider-Man. They were seen as an accomplice, and their overall reputation of getting into stuff like college was difficult, which brought in a sense of realism, because if something like this would happen in real life, which it never would, but just saying, everyone involved would be treated as an accomplice, and their life would be made much more difficult because of that. They would have trouble getting into certain stuff.
Yeah, that's very applicable to real life.
Yep, and I like that. They actually wrote that in.
Speaking of stuff that would happen in real life or whether it wouldn't, like how only Spider-Man could get away with this. If this was a normal person, it would have backfired on them stupendously. But who else besides Spider-Man, and I say that sarcastically, and what's the word where you don't want the answer when you ask a question?
I don't remember. Trev, you got it? Huh?
Rhetorically.
Rhetorically, yeah, I couldn't think of it for the life of me.
It's a rhetorical
I say this sarcastically and rhetorically. Who else but Spider-Man could use technology to find the dean of MIT and show up next to their car to convince them to let their friends in to MIT? That is some stalker-esque shit that would never fly in real life.
That is true. That is true.
Like, what the fuck was he thinking? How lucky do you have to be? The plot-induced stupidity that Doc Ock would show up right then and there so you could get some favor by saving her. Wow.
Exactly. Oh, and when I was bringing up Twist earlier, I forgot this one. But I like that that Peter thinking that Nick Fury was there to witness him not doing anything turned out to be more mindfuckery on Mysterio's part.
Uh-huh.
It added more to that villain's cunning, manipulative nature in the last movie. And since it wasn't revealed in the last movie that there was no witnesses to help Peter, it made it all the more shocking and much more of a surprise to this film's plot.
Mm-hmm. Something else I'm going to say that goes against the grain of what a lot of people on my side of the political spectrum say, but everyone on my side of the political spectrum agrees with me for this particular movie, but not the other two. But I actually go against them, is that Zendaya was a great actress. Everyone agrees in this third movie, but I've always thought she was a great actress in the other two as well. She just gets a bad rap because people want the actual MJ, but she gets kind of a little bit of unfair treatment. But she did great within this film, like especially.
I agree with you, actually, because when it comes to her, the people I think are biased against her character due to the chains. When here's the thing, she's not even Mary Jane. She's a different type of. She's a different MJ.
Yeah.
And when it comes to her character, what makes her performance so good is she's written as a more sarcastic than the other MJs. And I think that her carefree attitude kind of helped there. But at the same time, she's also willing to be more emotional and makes the scenes where she's having an emotional part with Peter actually tear-jerking and hard-hitting. Their relationship is adorable. You get her sarcastic, fun nature, but you also get a more serious half to her. And I think, what's her name again?
Zendaya.
Yeah, Zendaya did an amazing job at pulling both of those off.
Yeah, she did great. And she's a good actress in other movies, too.
I'd like to see her other stuff, yes.
Yeah, she doesn't have a lot out there right now, but she's a good actress. She really is. She got a bad rap. And I think something else that will also really help her MJ portrayal be even better recognized later on down the road in these Spider-Man movies is if Tom Holland actually ends up meeting an actual Mary Jane in his future movies. Now that he gets a clean slate, if he actually gets with another actual Mary Jane with the red hair and white skin and everything like that, her portrayal is going to be looked at way better because she really did do a good job.
Yeah, she did. I think she did amazing. People just tend to have a bias due to the race swapping, and I don't like when race swapping is treated as this big thing, like, oh, guess what? We have a black character, oh, we have a gay character, a female character. But here's the thing. I don't think it was ever treated like that in terms of her casting. When it comes to her casting, she's just a great actress, and I don't really give a fuck about race swapping as long as it doesn't hurt the plot in any way, shape, or form, or if it's treated as this groundbreaking thing, having a specific group in the movie, which they didn't. It makes sense in the context of the story. It does not hurt the plot, and it makes sense.
Mm-hmm. Were you about to say something, Trev?
Oh, I was just thinking this actually brings up a good question. Do y'all really think it's an actual clean slate, or do you think they're going to try and have like a reunion between Peter and MJ? Are they going to like find each other again? Is she going to like seek them out, or is there going to be like a storyline with that? Or do you really think that we're done with Ned and MJ and we're going to move on to other characters?
In my personal opinion, I think. Okay, let me clarify this. I think they will probably bring her back in some sort of cameos. I think she might have a mild like side sequence kind of role within some sort of side parts of a plot later on in movies. I don't think they'll bring her back though, or better yet, I don't think they should bring her back. I think that this conclusion on her character is perfect and they should leave it as is. Maybe a few cameos later on. Maybe Tom Holland gets to save her from another thing that she is completely uninvolved in, something like that. Will they probably bring her back? I'd say probably 51. Yes, they will. 49. No, they won't. But I think they shouldn't. I think they should just leave it as is, and it's beautiful. Now, Ned, they absolutely have to have him back. They have to. And I want him back.
Yeah, Ned's funny.
But, yeah, especially since he has these, Doctor Strange powers. But I think it's more likely than my wish that they will bring her back, but I don't think they should. But I don't think they're going to over abuse her character either. I have faith that they're going to use her the right amount, which is going to be very, very minimal now. I think they closed out her arc perfectly.
I think they did too.
Yeah.
Because,
yeah, I would actually agree with you. Sorry, Joey.
Finish, Trevor.
No, I would actually agree with you for one thing, because I don't think they need to do any love interests that we've already seen before, like MJ, Mary Jane, or, Gwen Stacy. Who I would like to see in this upcoming set of movies is Felicia Hardy, Black Cat.
That could work. Now, one thing, if they're going to introduce Zendaya back, they need to do it with like Tom Holland saving her, and then them keeping in touch and falling in love all over again, and her keeping the secret. That could work. I just don't want her. What I don't want to happen is for Tom Holland to reveal that she forgot everything because of a spell in order to save the world. I don't want that. If they bring their romance back, then I want it to be as if nothing bad ever happened, because then it'll feel like they're undoing the greatness and the progression of the character and story of the movie we just are talking about right now.
Yeah.
I might be alone in that. I might be wrong on that, but maybe.
Another plot hole.
Yeah, I would actually
finish, Trev.
I would actually say that I would agree with you, because if we leave it on this high note, that would be perfect.
I agree there. Oh,
yeah, go. I'm sorry.
A plot hole I did come by. Another plot hole that came to me. When Strange what Strange does, he erases everyone's memory of who Peter Parker is, but does that include the villains who are getting sent to the other realm? Which, again, that raises questions on what happens in those universes, because there are certain events that goes along with those villains that takes them knowing who he is behind that mask.
That's going to lead up to future films. Like, I agree that they're plot holes, but I really don't want to call them plot holes because it seems unfair. That's going to be future storytelling.
We'll see. I hope so. I'm hoping you know what I want to see? I want to see we get Spider-Mans of different universes. We get another Raimi/Maguire film. We get another Andrew Garfield film. Well, we also have the Holland Spider-Man. That is what I want to see. And I think there is a lot of potential made with what this has done.
Right. And the Miles Morales Spider-Man and a female Spider-Man will be fine as long as they keep on paying respect to all the Spider-Men. If they all team up like they did in the Amazing Spider-Verse, that'll be great too.
Yep. Which, another thing that I really liked is how they brought in the Maguire and Garfield Spider-Man. Like, for a while I was watching the movie, I was thinking, oh, we are not going to see, because since it took them a bit to come in, I was thinking, oh, we are not going to see Maguire and Garfield, are we? I was a bit disappointed, but then when Garfield shows up, it's handled in the most cool way possible. And then right after that, fucking Tobey Maguire, my favorite Spider-Man, by the way. And
agreed.
It was handled in a way that made sense too by by the friend, I forgot his name, Zed, by him messing around with that thing, hoping to bring in his Spider-Man, but he brought in everybody but Holland's Peter. and it made sense, and it was overall cool. So cool, everyone in my theater was fucking screaming when Maguire showed up. Like, I literally heard a guy yelling, "Ah, Tobey Maguire!" and shit like that. People in the entire theater were literally fucking screaming. And I'm not exaggerating either.
Oh, yeah. Oh, I hate it. I understand the excitement. I get excited too, but shut the fuck up.
I agree. Like, when I saw that, I was all giddy on the inside, but when I was looking at those people in the background, I was like, can you stop? I'm trying to watch the movie.
Bro, I so badly want to take this stream and then add in that Dave Chappelle part where he says the exact same thing, where he's talking about the trans issues. And right before I say that, put in the Dave Chappelle part and be like, or you could shut the fuck up.
You know, you can do that. You have my permission to do that on your channel. Feel free to do that.
I might when we'll see when I can fit it in.
Okay. But yeah, that is something I thought was really good, how it took them a bit to come in, where I think intentionally wanted the audience to question if they were going to be in the movie, which is why it took so long for them to come in. But then, at a sudden moment, they came into the movie, and it was fucking exciting.
Real quick, Joey, do you want Zendaya to come back, or you think we should just leave well enough alone?
I think either one could work. It would be nice if they kept it the way it was, because we have a very emotional conclusion here. But if they could write it well on her return, then I'm not going to complain either. I just want execution. That's what I want. I want it to make sense and not feel forced in, like, oh, you don't have to be sad now. She remembers who he is and stuff like that.
Okay, I can agree to that. Yeah, as long as it's I say we'll leave well enough alone. It will feel like they're taking away from his character development. But if they do it well, I ain't going to trip either. So I think we all agree on that.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Finish.
Well, I was about to say another thing I want to talk about, because I'm a huge critic of this. Like, I'm a promote myself a little bit. Professional Muay Thai guy here. I have a fight coming up in February. So, like, just the FYI for everybody. Which, Joey, I'm going to have you promote for me later on, so that other people can watch it live.
Would love to.
Yeah, it'll be a small pay-per-view and stuff like that. Real cheap pay-per-view.
But I'll share it around on my page and stuff. I even post it on my channel.
Yeah. I'm going to have you promote that. But that being said, I'm a huge critic on fight scenes and fight choreography. Like, way more than the average. That's another reason the Matrix movies sucked. Because even Keanu Reeves couldn't save it. But the fight scenes in this one, man, they're so good. Tom Holland versus Green Goblin, William Dafoe, bro, that shit was awesome. Falling
yes.
to the floors, oh, that was great.
It was, yes, and it was just really cool seeing him battle my favorite form of the Green Goblin, and almost killing him too until Maguire came in to stop it. That was actually very cool.
That was so good, so emotional, but so raw too. Just to see Tom Holland, raw, God of War, motherfucker looking like, just continue. When you bash Odin, and in the video game, you played God of War 3, right?
I have seen gameplay of it, yes, and I do plan to play it at some point.
Trev, how about you? You've played God of War 3, right?
Yeah, I'm familiar with it.
No. Have you played it?
No, I've seen gameplay like Joey, but I think I know what you're about to bring up.
Okay. Well, God of War is one of the most alpha games ever. And that's what it felt like in that scene. Because in God of War 3, whenever whenever you finally kill Odin, you finally achieve your goal, your whole mission. The video game allows you to keep on beating up Odin for as long as you want, and the screen will go completely red with blood, and it doesn't matter.
Awesome.
I've done it. You can literally keep on beating him up for an hour and a half. Just keep on repeating that O button. Bam, 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 bam. And it will keep on striking Odin over and over for 12 hours if you wanted to, because that's the way the video game is designed. It will It will let you keep going until you want to stop, and then the story will progress. That's a really cool game mechanic. I've never seen that done anywhere else. But that was the type of vibe I got from that scene where he's just beating the shit out of William Dafoe. That was so cool, man. That was awesome.
And the performance from Holland there was also incredible because you could feel the anger and sadness that was overwhelming him to do all this, and it was overall very cool. It was similar to how this might be a random comparison, but it's similar to how you've seen Hayden Christensen in Star Wars Episode 3 when he was battling Obi-Wan. In the way his facial expressions, you could tell there was an emotionally damaged man right there. And we got that here, and it enhanced the battle all the more. Which is why acting is important, because it not only can enhance emotional stuff, it can also enhance action scenes. And this gave us a mix of both emotion and action that made the fight scene all the more intriguing and investing.
Well, not even just that last fight between the two of them, but the first one when they're still at the apartment, Happy's apartment, and they're smashing each other through the floors, and he's punching the Goblin. He's just smiling and laughing at him because it's not phasing him.
So good.
That too. But one thing, this is just a personal thing right here. We did not get emo Peter Parker, but how Peter Parker should have came in the Maguire one. He should have came in doing that stupid fucking dance he did in Spider-Man 3 out of the portal. That would have been an automatic 10 out of 10 right there. I am not even joking. And then
funny.
Like, just imagine, like, for example, when both Spider-Men showed up when Holland was crying, I just imagine Tobey Maguire going, "Gonna cry." That would have been the best shit ever. We're like, we need Bully Maguire back. We need that shit.
That would be funny.
Yes.
Well, they probably felt that they filled their meme quota because they actually did the "I'm something of a scientist myself," which I thought was pretty funny.
Which that does remind me, we get a lot of very cool references to the other movies. We already mentioned the one with Garfield saving MJ, but you also had that quote from the Goblin, amongst other things. And it's all very well done fan service that could make fans of all of these movies, any of them, happy. Nobody is getting fucked over here. Everybody is getting treatment of equal fan service and love, and I like that about this movie.
That's why it makes $1.4 billion.
Exactly. Everyone is happy here.
Yeah.
Now, if I was to go on something a bit lesser in a movie, the effects are typical MCU standard. I'm going to say most of them are not very good. They're not bad, aside from a few, which, if I was going to go on a few effects, they look straight up bad here. Sandman, when he first showed up, looked cartoony and didn't blend in with the environments, and his movements just seemed janky. And then when you seen both Garfield and Maguire first shown up, and they did some jump, they obviously looked fake. They looked like they belonged in like a PlayStation 4 or Xbox One game. But the majority of it, I think, looks fine. It's not the type of effects that will break your immersion for a good story like this, but they're not gonna suck you in either. They're acceptable. Though, of course, the effects like the explosions, those look great, but those are the exception. Just like the bad ones are the exception. If I was to rate the movie just by the effects, it would be a 5 out of 10. Because for me, like the majority of Marvel stuff, they're okay. And I have seen a video that did point out why this is the case. Marvel movies are done like at least once a year. So when it comes to something like effects, they kind of rush into making the models and such of this stuff. So it turns out they usually turn out not the best, but more of acceptable for someone to get sucked into the story and such.
It wasn't so bad that it took me out of it, though. Most of it was still good.
Well, yeah, like I said, it's not. Like I said, it's not bad where it would take you out of it, but it's not good either. It's middle of the road effects for me.
Just for a couple of those scenes that you did mention, you are correct. But a lot of other parts were stupendous.
Oh yeah, there are parts where it does look good. Like I thought the lizard, he looked pretty good too. He overall was well detailed, had lots of emotion into his face, and he blended in. And then you had the other stuff like Doc Ock's arms, which I'm pretty sure that was CGI, so I gotta compliment that. But I think for the majority of them, there's a few parts where it looked good, a few parts where it looked bad, but the majority of it is middle of the road for me. It's not it's not bad where it will take you out, but it's not good where it would suck you in. It's pretty much, they're acceptable if I was to describe the effects, the majority of them. There's good parts, bad parts, but mostly okay parts. They don't look as good as something like Godzilla vs. Kong or Dune, but are acceptable, which is the majority of the MCU standard, I think.
I would say that they probably weren't as good as Dune or King Kong, but they were still pretty good. I give them a better rating than you do, but that's just opinion right there. So,
oh, most indeed. What do you think, Trev?
Well, I thought they were fine. I'll do some reassessing when I get the Blu-ray and see how it looks in that quality. But yeah, I didn't, nothing from memory, because I've only seen it once. Nothing from memory really stands out as being awful. So I thought it was fine. They served their purpose.
Yeah, like I said, they're acceptable. Like, for example, if the movie had a bad story, they're not gonna save it. But with the movie having a good story that it does, they're not gonna take you out.
Yeah. Like no lie, like I forgot to mention this before. I'm gonna go and see Spider-Man again as soon as we're done with the stream. We're gonna go shopping, and then I'm gonna go see it again probably around 7 my time.
That's awesome, man.
I don't blame you, because I love the movie.
Back and let y'all know what I think about these effects.
Yeah, go for it, because I think it's a really good movie. I love it. It's one of my favorite movies to come out 2022. My favorite, though, despite the movie's flaws, would actually be Godzilla vs. Kong, but that's not a surprise coming from me.
Yeah, I mean that's hard to beat, but I mean that's the whole purpose of the movie was those characters, though.
Yeah, overall, it's one of the best.
The thing about that first fight, though, with William Dafoe, him getting punched with Tom Holland, him smiling like that is me. Because you can look at my YouTube videos when I go maniacal. Whenever I get hit, I smile because I just think it's funny that they can't hurt me. Seeing that, man, that acting super awesome. That scene especially super awesome. But that was some DBS, that was some DBZF shit there. That fight where they were just going through the entire building and everything. That scene is so cool, man. I can't wait to go and see that again.
Yes.
Yes, sir.
KaiserZilla316 said, not to go off topic, but would you guys be down for a Peacemaker live review? Maybe. I gotta watch it first. Right now I've been watching the Korean series Rugal, but I do plan to see Peacemaker.
Yeah, why not? I mean, it's John Cena, the ultimate China cuck, but he's still funny as fuck.
Oh yeah, John Cena's fun. Now, in terms of the music for Spider-Man No Way Home, most of it, I'd say, is nothing that'll stand out. It serves the purpose by bringing emotions to whatever scenes. It's superhero music. That's what it is. It doesn't take away from the movie, but at the same time, it's what you'd expect from Marvel. It has the expected sound. But if I was to go out for a track that stood out, it would be the final scene when Holland is saying goodbye to all his friends and everyone is crying and such. The track just has this very powerful, emotional feel to it that made the scene twice as hard-hitting. And if it wasn't there, the scene would still be powerful, but not as powerful without it. Music is important, and I think it enhanced that scene very well. Aside from that,
I'm a big music guy.
Yeah, the most of the music is just standard Marvel fare, but that one track right there, I gotta give some credit. It was good.
I would actually say that it's a pretty melancholy score if you listen to the separate tracks, like with the OST and whatnot. But I like the callbacks to the other movies. They weren't super pronounced or nothing, but if you were really listening, you could hear the various themes for everybody. I thought it was a fine score.
Yeah, fine for melancholy, down the middle, does what it needs to do, no more, no less.
Yeah, that's why it's not bad, but not the best thing ever. Overall, it works. I wouldn't have the movie without it.
Yeah, no. Like one of the most perfect examples of where music is so important is like the Phantom Menace. Like
Oh, yeah.
you can hate Jar Jar all you want. I was too young to understand why people hated it back then, but now I get why. But I don't care. I will sit through that whole movie just to get to that opera scene with Darth Maul and Qui-Gon and Obi-Wan fighting. Man, that opera score is off the chain, bro.
I actually love the Phantom Menace. And when it comes to that music, yes. When Darth Maul brings out his lightsaber and the Duel of Fates, that's one of my favorite tracks ever. Not just Star Wars, but ever.
Yeah. I literally
the
for the prequel trilogy, like just to listen to that music.
Yeah, the music is incredible. Definitely a lot better than anything Disney brought in. There's not a single score in the Disney stuff, even the good Disney stuff I can think of. But when it comes to that prequel trilogy, I can name a lot of good scores. That's because you had the brilliance of John Williams that really brought whatever feel that needed to the scenes that he provided music for.
Trevor, what were you saying?
Oh, I don't think I was.
Oh, okay. Have y'all seen that Star Wars Family Guy skit? You know, where they killed John Williams?
I haven't seen I haven't watched Family Guy in years, actually. Been a while. I do remember liking the first few seasons, but after a while, I think it went a bit off.
Oh, I just watch Family Guy to have something on in the background.
That's essentially how I generally have it. Whenever it's on TV, there's nothing else. I'd be okay with it on, but it's nothing I'd seek out.
But look up the Star Wars Family.
Andrew, I think what you were talking about was that I just mentioned what the name of the track was for the Phantom Menace, which was Duel of the Fates. I think that's what you were talking about.
Got ya. But yeah, if y'all haven't seen that, look it up. I promise you, it's hilarious.
Okay, will do. Because there are some funny moments in Family Guy, even till this day.
Yeah, for sure. Like it's supposed to be stupid, writing and humor, the senseless type of stuff. So if it owns that, I ain't tripping on it.
Well, yeah, I hate that they removed Herbert though, because Herbert, I get that he's an offensive character. He was funny because he was disgusting.
Yeah. I mean, they really removed him because of Creepy Joe.
Yeah, I think that's probably why. But when it comes to him, I thought he was funny. I thought he was funny. He was creepy, and I get why he might not be everyone's cup of tea, because looking at his character objectively, he's a piece of shit. But so's everyone in Family Guy.
For real.
The show is full of piece of shit individuals, so what makes having someone like him out of the world of that show?
One thing I also want to point out too is something that I forgot, and it wasn't until Comics Explained brought this up, but when I went back and looked at it a second time, that was truly great. Is that something that this Spider-Man movie did? Is it brought back just how smart Peter Parker is across all the universes? Dude is freaking smart, and
he is.
Forgot about that.
Oh yeah, he is. Like especially when all three of the Peter Parkers were working together to make the proper serum to cure them all.
Yeah, for sure. That was a really good callback. Something that I forgot to point out earlier on your point, Trev, that you were talking about, his morality coming into play and being, a big part of that later, possibly with the Venom symbiote. Is that if you actually look back to the comics that I talked about with TOAA, you talked about whether or not he viewed it as worth it, or whether or not, to save people for the greater good, or to just be a pragmatist and just say F them and be self-protective and everything. Actually is answered in the comics. Now, of course, they're not going to write the movie according to the comics, but we already have a clue to that whenever he's talking to the ultimate god of the Marvelverse. Spider-Man straight up says that he doesn't want to be Spider-Man anymore. He doesn't want all that responsibility. If he could undo it all, he would. He doesn't want it. So that's just a big hint on where they might go with the Spider-Man story. And I so hope that they bring TOAA at some point into a Spider-Man movie to talk to him. That'd be so cool. I would love it.
Okay.
That would be deep cut.
What, Trev?
That would be deep cut, but it'd be great.
Hell yeah. Especially
when
since it's supposed to be getting like Shumul Gorath in the Doctor Strange movie. Like, that's the step up right there.
Yeah.
Yes, sir.
But yeah, unless any of you guys have anything else to say about all this, should we give our final thoughts and ratings?
Yeah.
Okay, my thoughts on the movie. Overall, I loved it. It was one of my favorite movies of 2021. It isn't perfect. There are some plot holes here and there. Some things could have used more time to flesh out. And the effects are middle of the road. Same with and the music is standard. But aside from that, you get some amazing drawbacks to all these classic superhero movies. And when they work together, and they even brought fucking Daredevil in, and not a new one either, the one from the TV show. It all blended in a very satisfying manner with some really cool fight scenes, very well done emotional impact, and likable characters as expected. Honestly, I think when it comes to the MCU, this is one of the most emotional films it has to offer, and I couldn't recommend it more. It is a lot of fun, and even I would like to give it a 9 or a 10, but I think on looking at it objectively, I can't give it to that level of rating since I do have some criticisms with it. So I'm going to give it an 8. It's a great movie. Go out to see it if you haven't already. It's a fun time, and it offers a lot of fan service for everyone, whether you're a fan of the Maguire films, the Garfield films, the Holland films, or all of them. Go out to see it. I think it's an amazing time in the theater, and I definitely can guarantee you will not be disappointed, even if you do have issues with the MCU.
Go ahead, Trev.
Yeah, so in my humble opinion, this is the best Spider-Man movie we've had in a while. I'm kind of the odd man out here in that I'm a big Andrew Garfield fan. I like both of his movies, flaws and all. Fling your tomatoes at me. I'm sorry. But yeah, it's for me, it's the best we've had in a while.
I agree.
I think the great part about what this movie did is that it offered an olive branch to the fans of the Maguire and Garfield films. And it kind of, for me at least, lifted a weight off my shoulders about how I was kind of bitter about how the MCU was handling the character. And I went back and looked at those films, and I appreciated them for what they were. I mean, there's still some things that I don't agree with, but I would say in terms of my ranking for Holland's movies, this is at the top. Homecoming would be second, and then Far From Home would be last, mostly because it kind of overdid the comedy, in my opinion. But yeah, I think it's at this point in time, it's an 8 out of 10, and I would go so far as to say it's probably one of the top 3 of the live action films.
Oh yeah, It is. I think it is. I think in terms of MCU, this is one of the best it has to offer. Even taking off my bias glasses of being a big Spider-Man fan and them bringing in my favorite, Tobey Maguire. So I think this overall is a really good movie that did push the standard. I think the only film that I rank a higher score objectively in the series would be Shang-Chi. But on a personal note, I love them both equally. I think this and Shang-Chi are the best Marvel movies we had in years.
I like Shang-Chi. I'm not going to agree with you on it being one of the best. I think Spider-Man personally was better, but Shang-Chi was enjoyable. I would put Spider-Man within definitely the top 10 movies. I would possibly put it in the top 5 movies. Still the best one I think forever will be Infinity War. Like
Infinity War is good.
Go, bro! Like that movie's so good.
It's good, yes. It has a lot of emotion for it. I think this was the first in years to bring back that emotion Infinity War had.
Yeah, Spider-Man is better than Endgame, so I'll give it that. I would honestly give it easily a 9. I would probably give it a 9.5 even on a scale of 1 to 10. But I would say 9 is definitely where I'm the most comfortable. A little bit of they could have done a little bit less of an ass pull with what's Tom Holland's friend Ned. a little bit less of an ass pull with his magic powers, but I like how we're gonna have basically a Wong for forever. Because they're going to keep on having a chubby Asian guy, play his role as a magic guy. So I like that. But I just genuinely enjoy it. It's a unifying film, and I hope Hollywood takes lessons from this. They probably won't, but maybe they will. Whenever it affects their pockets too badly, they listen. So maybe things will start to change.
A person said Spader commented, a problem I had was with Jamie Foxx. He seemed like he was just playing himself more than Max Dillon. Well, I admittedly haven't seen too much work with Jamie Foxx in it, so I can't say whether or not he's playing himself. But overall, I thought he did pretty good as the character Electro. He offered the emotion that the character had, so it worked. That's all that matters to me.
Yeah, it worked. There wasn't too much you could do with this character, so I like what they did do.
Yeah.
Yeah.
All right. Well, that's my thoughts. I liked it.
But with that being said, that's it for this episode. Please comment your thoughts down below, and if you liked this video, please hit that like button, share it around, and subscribe. Make sure to hit that bell for notifications to keep up to date with all my future content. And also subscribe to Andrew Sosa's channel, Sosapotence, and Trev Tom. Both make some really good content. Trev hasn't made stuff in a while, but what he has there is good, and he'll have some more down the road whenever he gets around to it. Also go around.
Oh, go ahead. Go ahead.
Also check out our social media expansions. Those are also in the links in the description too.
Sweet, yeah. My YouTube is Sosapotence 300, just in case you have to look it up. Afterwards, Joey, just hit me up on Discord or Messenger for just a little bit. I just have a couple questions, and I'm gonna help share this video around. But this was fun. I appreciate you having me on.
It's an honor to have you on. I enjoy having these discussions because really, when it comes to these live streams, it's just nerds talking about stuff we're interested in, and I like that. It's not the typical review I do there. I put a lot of time and effort into it. I just have to sit down, get a few friends, and discuss the opinions. It was enjoyable.
Yes, sir. Thanks for having me on too, Trev. You there, Trev?
Oh, it was great to meet you, Andrew. I hope to do it again sometime.
All right. Sounds good, man. I'll holler at y'all later. You all have a good rest of the day.
See ya. This is Daikaiji Spacezilla, leaving the building.
You too.